Great. How was it getting here? A lot of fun?
Better than we deserved.
Better than you deserved. Well, it's a heartfelt welcome from myself, Vaiśeṣika Dāsa, if we haven't met yet, and this is my wife, nā'ko Dāsa. And we're embarking on a great journey, all of us together. We have about 10 days, which is 440 hours altogether. You can figure out the seconds from that. And it's a time of investment. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that life is for collecting daivi sampat, basically attracting the Lord's attention by our activities. And there's an accumulation of spiritual credit. You can think of it like that. And when you have spiritual credit, then you become wealthy. This is the real wealth. You have spiritual strength, which yoga balena means that you can be self-directing. You become the master of your senses. You also are able to be atmatushta, feel happiness within yourself in any circumstance. As we just heard in the song that Bhaktivinoda Thakur so kindly left for us when he mentions Grihe Tako Bane Tako Sarahari Bodhidako and sukhe dukhe bhulo nā'ko varane harinam kore, because we develop by this accumulation of daivi sampat a taste for chanting Hare Krishna, which is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur also recommended in the last line of the song. He said, this is my advice, Bhaktivinoda Upadesh. It's good advice to get, right? If you can get the advice of Bhaktivinoda. And he says just one time, ek bar nam rashe matare, try to get this powerful holy name. So your time coming here is an investment. Your energy that you're using. The advice of Rupa Goswami, so we're getting advice from Bhaktivinoda. Then from Rupa Goswami says, Tannama Rupa, Charitari Sukirtanana, Smrityo Karmena Rasanamanisin Niyoja, Tishtan Vraje Tanaragi Jananugami, Kalam Nayeda Kilam Vitupadesha Saro. Use your time. You've had a finite amount of time, a designated ayu, lifespan, a certain number of hours and minutes and seconds in this life. Rupa Goswami says, stay engaged in hearing and chanting. And in the world of investing, it's said that you don't try to time the market. It's not timing the market, but it's time in the market that counts. And if you had started in 1995, some of you might not have been able to do that, in case you were born after that time. And you had invested in the S&P 500, and you had stayed in it until the present day, you would have earned about 8.8% return on your investment, which is very high. And if you had missed just 10 of the best days during that duration, then it goes down to 5.9% return on your investment. If you missed the best 20 days, and that during that span of time, it goes down to about 3.9% return on your investment. And if you miss more than that by adding 10 more you missed, and it goes down precipitously to about 2%. That's a big difference, especially when you're talking about compounded interest. And in a similar way, if we look at our lifetime and our lifespan as a time to invest, if you stay in the market, no matter what, you may be sukhe dukhe bhulo nā'ko. You may be happy, distressed. You may think, oh, I'm no good. I don't have a taste. Doesn't matter. you stay in the market. It's not timing the market, it's how much time you spend in the market. And if you just stay the course, it's already chalked out. Do your due diligence and figure out that this is the only market that really counts. The other markets, there's nothing there at the end. If you go to withdraw your money, and we used to do this play back in the old days where somebody was working hard their whole life, and then at the end when they went to take all their money out of the bank, they had the wrong bank account. There was nothing in it. But this is the real bank account. So all of you, the painstaking way in which you flew across oceans and time zones, had to go through security about 50 times to get here, poked and prodded, and had to decide what to bring with you. It's an investment. And one of the investments that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially recommends, out of 64 different mutual funds or limbs of bhakti that you can invest in, he said there's 5 main ones. If you get in these, he said, then you're going to be spiritually wealthy. And of the 5, one of them is coming and staying in the Holy Dham. So congratulations to our spiritual investors who have joined here today. And this replica of Vrindavan is non-different from Vrindavan, in that Vrindavan is marked by the mood of service and surrender to Krishna, which is the only source of happiness for any soul. And there are 10 such replicas in the world, starting with the one we find in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, for those who have read that book, that Narada had suggested that when Krishna was in Dwarka and he was in his dreams calling out to his lovers in Vrindavan and remembering Vrindavan, and in fact his pillow was becoming moist from his tears, and the devotees were in a conundrum how to alleviate Krishna's separation, and Narada said, you make a Nava Vrindavan. So they created a Vrindavan, and when Krishna came out of his trance, then he was engaged by the local devotees to walk through what had been created there as a replica of Vrindavan, and he was interacting with his mother and father and the various iconic figures of Vrindavan, Govardhan and Jamuna and so forth. And over the years, others have replicated Vrindavan. Rupa Sanatan had done it. And then of course we have New Vrindavan. And if you go to Budapest and then drive a little further to Krishna Volgi in Hungary, you'll find another replica of Vrindavan that Shiva Ramaswamy has developed. And there are several others, and then there's this, which is a very accurate replica of Vrindavan physically and spiritually. You'll find tonight we're going to go to Govardhan Hill and we'll also go to the Jamuna. And you'll see Madan Mohan. And for those of you who haven't been to Vrindavan and seen the silhouette of Madan Mohan and swooned, because it's the most prominent symbol of Sri Vrindavan Dham, isn't it? Then you can see it here, and then you can join our next yatra in February, and we'll go to Vrindavan and see it there also. So entering into this yatra is exciting. We're guaranteed by staying in the transcendental vibration and going from each pastime place that we'll visit, that we'll be in contact with the spiritual energy. Mahatmanastumam parta daivim prakritim ashrita. Krishna says the great souls endeavor to always stay under the shelter of the divine energy, so we'll be experiencing that. And the mood of entry is to have a sense of wonderment, have a sense of patience, have a sense of humility. And when we enter into such a place, I think of the time when I was traveling with one of my senior godbrothers to many famous temples. And in every temple we visited, we'd bow down and pay our obeisances. And we were right next to one another, so we could hear one another speaking the pranam mantra for our spiritual master. And after many such encounters, my godbrother, as we were sitting up from offering obeisance, he said, "Why is it that we come before each one of these deities and we say the pranam mantra of our spiritual master?" And I said, "I don't know, you tell me, you're my senior godbrother." And he said, "It's because we're telling Krishna who let us in here. Who allowed us to come here? Under whose guidance are we coming here?" So as we enter the Dham, it's a charming place, but it's also the spiritual abode. So we enter in carefully, knowing that we are coming from a different environment, and as we enter into the Dham, we try to conform to the energy of the Dham. And remember that, or think in humility, as I mentioned, that it's not by my own qualification. It's not because I or somebody else could afford a ticket so I could come here. That's not the ticket. It's the mood of I'm coming under the shelter of the Vaishnavas. And I'm here only by their mercy, and I'm here to serve and to take the mood of the Dham into my heart so that when I go back to whatever place I'm going to, I can maintain that. All transformation starts with some spark. It doesn't come, although it's necessary to at some point practice, but a spark ignites a fire. And we come to the Dham also to expose ourselves to the sparks that come from our encounters with the transcendental energy here. Because we have the nature that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes as being eternal servants of Krishna. He says the propensity to love Krishna is there in our heart. And when a spark from the Dham, a scene you may see just one of the Dham animals you may look at and there may be a spark. Or you may see one of the deities here and offer your obeisances and feel that the spark hit you. You may see pilgrims enthusiastically going to morning artik, carrying flower garlands, and the spark may hit you. It's by Krishna's mercy. We can't produce it ourselves. Krishna makes the spark, some udipana, or a stimulus for the natural affection we have for Krishna to awaken. So we're here on a great journey. We're here to accumulate as investors great wealth that we'll take with us, not just for a lifetime, but forever. What you get here is an eternal investment. It goes in your heart. Every obeisance you make, every step you take here in the Dham, even sleeping in the Dham, Krishna is so kind, he counts it in his book. He has a book, Prabhupada said once. When you're sleeping, he's in the Dham offering dandavats. And that goes in your spiritual bank account. We'll also be singing a lot, and it's something that goes on in the spiritual world. Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumis Chintamani Ganamayitomiyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanamapi Bamshi Prayasiki. The music of the spiritual world will reproduce wherever we go, and that'll stick, just as a warning, because once it goes in, the tunes, the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Narottam Das Thakur, you won't be able to get them back out again. Just a warning ahead of time. It's on the label. Be forewarned. And those songs that we'll sing here have special potency. Also in the next 10 days, besides transporting ourselves from one place to another, we have no business here except for hearing and chanting and seeing Krishna. Don't worry about anything. You did the right thing, you made the right investment, and now you can just double down into it. Since you're far away from all your duties, nobody can find you. Most people don't even know where you are. So feel free just to stay isolated in this mood of, I'm just with Krishna, I'm with the Dham, I'm with the devotees. And as we travel as a group, we're working together to find those sparks of inspiration that will ignite the fire within our hearts. Try to help one another. One way to help is to be enthusiastic. And enthusiasm means stay focused on the bhajans, stay focused on your chanting. When we're moving around, talk about Krishna, keep the transcendental vibration going, KTTVG. And also, you have to be careful, because even though we're in a spiritual place, there are holes someplace in the street, there are steps that you may not negotiate properly, so just watch your step, be careful. Take care of your health. It's a trauma, flying in a tube at 800 miles an hour across the ocean. What to speak of all the other noise you're exposed to just traveling. Take care of yourselves, make sure you get as much rest as you can when the opportunity's there. Nirkula is the biggest advocate of staying hydrated. As we notice, that's one of the major factors on yatra. Even the flight over here is dehydrating. And what to speak of changing climates. If you came from snowy climes, now you're more in the tropics. So make sure you drink enough water. And we're going tonight, after this, to Govardhan Hill for Artik, and then to the Jamuna. And Divyanand Prabhu and Vrindarika Ramai will say more about the schedule. But I'm going to see if Nirkula wants to make a few comments.
Hare Krishna. We're so happy you're all here, and hope that your trip wasn't too exhausting. You did make it here, so that's a good thing. And as Guru said, we want you to take care of your health. We're so happy to be here at Govardhan Eco Village. We know you're all going to really love it, and we're going to leave. But we thought that this would be kind of a soft landing. We know that you've been all working hard, taking exams, working, and so we wanted to kind of have a nice place for you to, it's all nice, but have it a little bit more of a, as I said, soft landing. The climate's nice, Prashadam's wonderful, the atmosphere is incredible, and so we want to be able to have you all take care of that. And it's important to take care of your health. ourselves. I think some of you learned that from previous yatras or just your life in general. You know, you're always pushing it. You're always burning the candles at both ends. So, yeah, if there's anything I can do to be of service, please don't hesitate to let me know. And we're going to have fun.
These books we'll be carrying around with us. I recommend it when we're going to places. If you have your songbook with you, then we'll be turning to various pages to do bhajans. Also, this reflection book is quite handy, and I recommend that starting today, think about what you want to achieve in 2025 and start writing down some of your goals and aspirations. When we get to Mayapur, we'll go to see Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Bhajan Kutir and Samadhi. And when we're there, as we've done the last couple of years, we take some time for everyone to personally, individually read his or her goals to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and ask for blessings for making advancement in the new year. So use this book also for writing down any of the sparks that hit you here, because we'd like to hear about it. It's one of the best parts of yatra, especially having a yatra of this size, where we'll get to know one another's thoughts and feelings by sharing. So when you have a realization, when you hear something that's meaningful to you, a verse or something someone says, or something you saw or experienced, please write it down. And those essential realizations that you have, when shared with the rest of the devotees, will amplify, and that will be one of the highlights of our yatra. And now let's just see if you have any reflections already or any questions. Sharing means caring. We used to have 4 extra mics, but we'll make do with 1.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Can you say your names too, so everyone?
My name is Simran, and I really liked how you said that all transformation begins with a spark. I feel like that's made me more enthusiastic to try and find those sparks.
Hare Krishna. For coming to the Dham, one of my realizations in relationship to finding sparks, sometimes I'm chasing them, and other times, especially recently, I'm just praying and waiting for them to come to me. And this experience we've had recently over the last 24 years at Govardhan, where we go there and hear the Bhagavatam. For many years I was straining to write everything down, mark everything in the book, try to catch it later, as many of you might have experienced in your devotional lives or even in your studies. When I went to school, I always felt like I was 2 days behind the first day of the class. And then after the semester was over, I thought I missed 95% of it, so I held on to my textbooks for many years, thinking I'd go and extract the rest of it, but I never did, because life moves on. And in the Dham, if you keep a humble mood and a service mood, everything will come to you by Krishna's grace. You don't have to try too hard. You made the investment to come here. Just be here in a humble mood and everything will come to you. Everything's already here in a very accommodating way. The Dham is the most accommodating place. And for those pilgrims who come here, Krishna gives special consideration. thank you for starting the reflections. You get a bonus 250 points for starting us off. That's a lot, by the way. Okay, let's see a few more thoughts, realizations, questions, complaints. If you're cranky, you can let it all out here. You were annoyed by the flight attendants. They didn't bring you water. Yes. You could pass it hand to hand, or you could do like a long pass.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, I really liked what you mentioned about being isolated. And I feel like that didn't come to my mind, and I was like, no, I can just let it all go. And I think that was really freeing, just thinking about being in the present moment and whatever duties, responsibilities, or making grades coming out and all of that. It's just, I can just leave it all behind. And I felt really happy knowing that we can be isolated because it is really for a good cause. And in that isolation, we're not living in ignorance, but we're actually embracing the moment and investing in our spiritual journey.
That reminds me, the same friend I told you about earlier, we were parikram and travel partners for many years, and he had his own business. I'd go pick him up on another continent, and then we'd come together to India, and he always had to leave behind his business for a month, at least, to come to Kartik. And one of his suppliers was always amazed that he was leaving behind a month's worth of money, because when you're an entrepreneur, self-employed, there's a way in which you walk away from your business, there's 30 days lost, right? And she, who is a lifetime supplier of the items that he was selling, couldn't believe he was leaving it for 30 days. And it always make an exclamation. It's like, are you crazy to go away from all this? So there is a way that when we leave everything behind, all the wheels spinning in our head about solving problems and what am I going to do next, you have permission now when you're yatris to be free. Nobody can get to you here in the atmosphere of the Dham. You're off the grid. Very nice reflection. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. I liked when you were talking about how saying the pranam mantra of our spiritual master lets us in, or tells Krishna that someone let us in here. I think it was a good reminder that any dham I've ever gone to or any service that I've ever done, it's not that I have any qualification to do so, it's that like someone above me let me do that service.
Gopi Paranadana Prabhu, you can pass it. You have your hand up, right? Good to see you. Gopi Paranadana Prabhu used to say, in spiritual life, it's not what you know, but who you know, and what you are that counts. If what you are is sincere, that's all you need. And if you know the right persons, then you're completely connected to Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Great to see you again.
Good to see you as well.
Coming from the snow?
Yes,
Any snow?
from Boston.
Very good, very good.
No, but okay, so my question is amongst friends, let's say that, how do we ensure that we're, like, oftentimes discussion topics, they start with Krishna Katha, and they can stray to this, that, Prajalpa, this, that. But then how do we ensure that we stay focused on Krishna in a way that doesn't feel forced and still engages everyone? Because oftentimes, if we observe that, okay, like 30 minutes later we're on the bus and the topic is just totally something else, and then often if you force it back, then people lose engagement. But how can we constantly bring the focus back to Krishna in a way that remains engaging and doesn't lose people's interest? Because I feel like that sometimes happens.
Yeah, just chant Hare Krishna. That's the safest place to be. Keep the kirtan going as much as possible, chant. And it's not that we're dry also. We had, yesterday the great opportunity to meet with quite a few God brothers and God sisters who just happened to be here. And we all sat together and had lunch, probably about 20 of us. And we talked about a lot of things, but generally they were in relationship to Krishna. Some devotees, we laughed, so that's not illegal. In fact, I was sitting next to Shruta Kirti and he was telling how, no, Prabhupada used to laugh. He'd tell jokes and he'd really laugh hard. So we're not dry, but it's an acquired taste, Krishna consciousness. And when you have that taste, you don't want to lose it. And you can lose it if you go off the topic. But fortunately, Krishna is the topic of everything. And if you know the fine art without being a jerk of trying to command everybody in the conversations, like, hey, would you guys, you know, I mean, I've seen it before. I was at a lunch in Govardhan once, and there was an overly enthusiastic devotee there. I mean, it's to say overly enthusiastic. I mean, it's always good to be enthusiastic, but we were having lunch, and he was asking one of the more senior devotees there some really philosophical questions while we were having lunch. And that devotee looked up and he said to him, not during prasadam, something about time and the atom, and it's like, we're just having some sabji. It's not the time. So they're the right times to be a little light, but talking about mundane stuff, you'll feel it can be cringeworthy. It's like, oh, could you not bring that in here now? And you could always, if you know your fellow devotees well enough, just sort of like, yeah, bring it back. So it's an art. Keep chanting, keep the vibration going, and at certain times, just relate everything to Krishna, and everything's relatable. I was just meeting with Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, and we were talking, and he was saying, because he speaks to modern audiences, nowadays he's talking to a lot of people who aren't acquainted with Vedic culture. So he said he thought at first he felt a little guilty by looking into a lot of the current topics that are going on. But then he thought, no, everything's related to Krishna. And he hears things and he listens to things, and then he finds material. So find material, it's all Krishna. Just stay Krishna conscious, then you'll be happy. Otherwise, it becomes tainted and you won't be as happy. Hey, these are good questions. Yes?
Hare Krishna. I was flying in on Turkish Airways, and during the plane I was trying to sleep, so I tried turning off the screen, but only the top half turned off. The bottom half stayed on, and I was confused, so I asked the flight attendant, how do I turn the bottom half off? And she said you can't, because the bottom half was always there to mention when the Islamic prayers times were, because people would lose track of time on the airplane. So they wanted to make sure everyone knew exactly when the prayer times were coming up. There would be like a countdown, like 5 hours, 4 hours, and 2 minutes, etc. And I thought this was actually really nice that they want to make sure that religion is at the top of everyone's priorities. And similarly, at the Istanbul airport, I had a 9.5-hour layover, and I was wondering what to do. So I went to they had a prayer room just for Hindus, where I got to chant peacefully. There was no one there. It was very quiet. There was a dim room, and there was pictures of Krishna, there was pictures of Vishnu, and I got to chant in front of them, and I thought it was amazing. Even though in Turkey, being an Islamic state, they still made sure that they welcomed people into other faiths and gave them the opportunity. So I thought it was really nice. And in the same way, I want to make sure that during yatra that making sure our faith in Krishna is always at the top of the priority.
Or at the bottom of the screen.
That's nice.
Hey, that's a good one.
I'm inspired by our story to share perhaps another airplane story. But I was on the flight from Singapore to Bombay, and I was sitting next to perhaps another college student who was coming from New Zealand. And he was asking me whether they were going to serve whiskey on the plane, because he heard that there's usually beer and other alcohol, but not whiskey. So I told him that I don't drink. And he was like, "You don't drink?" And this was one of the first times he was traveling internationally. He was born and brought up in India, and then he said, in the movies, how can you live in America and not drink? And then he saw me get like, a Jane meal and like practically not touch much of it. So we were just talking like this, and it made me realize, and the reason I'm connecting this is because in the Dham sometimes I feel like I very easily get tired, and that conversation just was something to hold on to as gratitude, that we are so fortunate that we have this perspective on life that is more so in the mode of goodness, and whereas in the world there's so many other influences and people think that they're doing what is typically normal because of media.
These are good examples of you're coming to the Dham, but you're not separated from it, because you're seeing everything in relation to Krishna. And when you're headed for the Dham also, isn't it, don't you feel this impetus, I want to keep the vibration really high because I don't want to come barging into the Dham with all kinds of stuff dripping off me from the material world? And it gives you that protection so that you see everything in relation to Krishna. This is a major incident, this fly, isn't it? Yes. Well, somehow you raised your hand, so we're going to call on you. Go ahead. Huh? Oh.
After this one.
You can take this one, Maharaj.
Unamas. Go ahead, you accidentally raised your hand. We'll count it. Next support, aisle 1.
I liked the definition that you kind of referred for the being enthusiastic, where it means we should also be focused. And I especially appreciated saying that we should focus on our japa, because I think in other durations and periods, I'm always having a to-do list. Just like Rama mentioned, we're always burning the candle from both ends. So I'm grateful to be here and just do my best and focus and try to be enthusiastic.
Now, word from our sponsor.